So in 2002, the LMPD murdered Marshall Marbly. And they murdered Marshall Marbly, who they had dealt with before. They knew that he had some mental issues that was going on. He's sitting there saying he's Jesus Christ, and then they slayed Jesus Christ, right? So once they did that, I had actually got confused with the Jason Craven story with the Marbly story. He was only just in his car. He was just in his car, and they shot him while he was in his car. Now, Jason Cravens is the man that had shot him in the stomach, and then he walks inside of his house and then he dies. This happened October 30th, 2002, and it wasn't presented to the grand jury either for a probable cause hearing or an indictment. So again, this is another incident where the police are just covering up their own. The internal investigations and the police merit board aren't there for the people. They're just another mechanism to cover the asses of the criminal police, and they're out of control. The police are absolutely out of control. They don't care for the truth, and they don't care for justice. They just care, oh, you're disrespecting me, and since they're the ones that set the example for the rest of us, is that how the rest of us are supposed to act? If somebody just gives us an eyeball, we're just supposed to put violence on them? Violence, they go with violence automatically. And so on October 30th of last 2002, of 2002, the 32-year-old Jason Cravens is outside his apartment on Ladoma Way carrying a rifle. When the county police officers ordered him to drop his weapon, he went inside his apartment. Officer Clayton Patton fired one shot at Cravens, and a standoff ensued. When Cravens finally came out, he had been shot in the stomach. So supposedly they say he had a gun, right? They just say that. Who knows if that's even true? They say drop his weapon. He goes inside the apartment, and then he's in the inside apartment. They shoot, and then he's shot in the stomach, and later dies at University Hospital. In both cases, you had with Marbly and with Cravens, you had a history of mental illness. So they want to act like what any crazy person, anybody has mental illness, just should die. I mean, that's not the solution. They produced weapons while they're being held or confronted by police. Police had weapons, right? So it's hypocritical to say, well, just because you got a weapon, was he pointing the weapon at people? Was there an imminent threat? Was there an imminent danger? There was not an imminent threat because he goes inside the apartment and they shoot inside the apartment. And that's when they killed him, so he was going away from them. And Marshall Marbly, he just seems like he's just stuck in a car and he's just being hounded by the police. And eventually there was, some ruling that said that there was too much abuse of authority. So sometimes some of these cases actually go the right way. And what we need to understand is, like, yeah, there's bad cops everywhere, but we need to kind of pick up those heroic stories of when there's success. And when there's success, that's the ones we want to emulate. So take the Grant County rape trial that gets the man $1.4 million. It wasn't presented to the grand jury either, so they had to file a federal lawsuit against the police under civil rights because the state of Kentucky, the people that's already here, weren't doing enough about it. They were wanting to cover up the crimes of the jailers for raping the shit out of this poor 18-year-old for a traffic violation, and they didn't do their job. They didn't find an indictment. There's massive rape and they still don't find an indictment. And the guy was still alive, so he could still press forward. But with these gentlemen, they're dead, so they can't speak up for themselves. So all three officers are currently on the new merged Metro Police Force. Jason Cravens is the one that had got shot, and Clayton Patton was the one that had murdered Jason Cravens. So Clayton Patton was the one that had shot. Clayton Patton's a murderer, and he didn't get in trouble for it. So you got David fucking Stingle, who Stinkle, his old ass body all fucking wrinkled, didn't even present the case to the grand jury, and he mocks democracy. Louis Coleman said, "Fuck you, David fucking Stinkle." Louis Coleman is probably like the biggest voice for black folks, and since he's been dead, there's been more black folks that have been shot, and nobody has been saying anything about it. So David Stingle has not found any criminal conduct in any instance of police officers killing human beings in this community, said Reverend Louis Coleman III. And Clayton Patton shot Cravens in the stomach. So yeah, again, David Stingle, the county attorney is in one of the most powerful positions, and he continues to thwart justice. He continues to not give a shit about the truth. He doesn't want the process. Everybody says, well, tell it to the judge. If you don't like the laws, change the laws, go to the legislature. But they don't give a shit about the laws. They just want to manipulate the system, right? They're in the system. They don't have to bring up a charge, and who's going to go after him? Anybody? You guess you'd have to go to the Attorney General, the Kentucky State Attorney General, if you wanted anybody. You'd have to go above them. And so this was another case of David Stingle, the county attorney, not presented to the grand jury. So no probable cause is going to be found because it's not been presented to him, and no jury trial is going to happen. And we never find out any other information except for the statements that the police give. And that's bullshit. I mean, that is a trend. That is bullshit. Our system is supposed to be, we're the harbinger of democracy. We're the city on the hill. We fight for freedom and democracy all over the world, and yet our criminal justice continues to fail because sometimes they prosecute some of the people, but their buddies and friends, nepotism. The spoil system is allowing them to do whatever they want to do. So they don't want to go after their buddies. They want to cover up their criminal buddies' crimes. Their criminal cops can do, their criminal cop friends can do as many crimes as they want to do, and nobody says anything about it. So again, James Edward Taylor, you're going to hear the exact same fucking thing, okay? Jefferson County Attorney David Stingle says they were justified. February 2003, James Edward Taylor was shot 11 times while he was sitting down and handcuffed. So you got James Edward Taylor sitting down handcuffed, and he gets shot 11 times. Pow, 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 pow. 11 fucking times they shot him while he was sitting down and handcuffed. He was handcuffed. Okay, so February, December, let's see. Okay, so February, I'm not sure if that's when the story comes out. December 5th, 2002, I got that date written down too. So it gained national attention. Reverend Jesse Jackson and Dick Gregory comes to Louisville after this case happens. So you got James Edward Taylor, who's he's just at his apartment, compartment, involvement, solvent. Fallen Ballin. So he's on 709 East Catherine, okay? 709 East Catherine is where James Edward Taylor's apartment is, and on December 5th, 2002, two plainclothes white men, Michael Oatmeal O'Neill and the D- failure from the trailer, and Brian Luckett said, fucking put 12 bullets into 50-year-old James Edward Taylor while James was handcuffed, while he was handcuffed. Like, what the fuck? James Edward Taylor just needed a hug, but instead of love, his life got fucked with tons of blood, shot in the front 12 times. 11 times. 11 to 12 times. His hands behind his back. Say goodbye to dad, kids. James Edward Taylor had broken ribs, his liver and spleen pulverized, his lungs vaporized and decimated. James Edward Taylor's crime was being too black. Commonwealth Attorney David Stingle saw no crime. Grand jury wasn't even given a chance to decide on indictment for felony for Mikey Oatmeal O'Neill to do some jail time. The coroner said that even if emergency room, operating table, and experienced doctors had been at the scene, they would not have been able to revive James Edward Taylor. So you have Michael O'Neill and Brian Luckett. Michael O'Neill and Brian Luckett, who are both men who comes across James Edward Taylor's apartment. They go into his apartment. They see some heroin needles, and there's a party going on, so they lock everything down. And while one of them, I want to say O'Neill stays by, and Luckett goes get some handcuffs, and then by the time he comes back, there's a man that was dead. And the story was he had like a little box cutters, he had like the 9/11 terrorist, he had like a little box cutters in his pocket, they said, and he was coming after him, and he didn't know what to do, so he just shot to kill. Dude's old man, he's 40-something years old, or 50-year-old man. He's sitting down, handcuffed behind his back, and if you're handcuffed behind your back, how are you going to, I'm not going to, it just seems like you could just push me, even if you had no weapons or anything on you, and I'm coming at you like this, right? Because that's what they're saying, that they still had, if that's true, if we're even to believe that he even had a knife, they like to plant, stuff afterwards. So this is just a clear fucking case of murder, police brutality. This is 11 fucking times, all you need is one shot. He shoots 12 times, 11 to 12 times at point blank range. So he shot to kill. He didn't shoot to stop the threat. He shot to kill, and he just kept on going, and he didn't stop, right? He was just having fun with bam, 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 bam. And then dude was dead. There was no reviving him at that point. He was shot up to pieces. And, you know, David Stingle said that there's no crime. Oh, there's no crime. What do you mean there's no crime? Like, the police are justified? Yeah, you keep on covering their asses up, but let's let the citizens decide. Let the grand jury decide. We have some sort of citizen review board. You know, it's a grand jury. If the grand jury understands that they don't have to do what the prosecutor tells them to do. Prosecutor tries to say, this is what we want. They want to try to make their massa happy. But they're not allowed to do that. They're not allowed to sway it. You know, here's the evidence. Here's what they said about this. Here's what they said about that. Let the two sides present their sides, and then let them decide. But they didn't care about that, right? So 2004 is when Michael Newby was murdered, and Michael Newby was murdered by Mackenzie Mattingly, and it was in Jefferson County on 46th and Market Street. In 2004, Mackenzie Mattingly murdered Michael Newby, and Mackenzie Mattingly, again, this is like Johann Stimley, this is just like Desmond Rudolph. They were plain clothes, or Clifford Lewis. They're plain clothes men. They just wolf packed them, right? They just jump them out of nowhere with plain clothes. Mackenzie Mattingly is even more of a incredible example because he's plain clothes, and then they later on, even the cops in their own statement said it was a drug deal gone bad. So what happened? It was a drug deal gone bad. So why the fuck is you involved in a drug deal? Are you offering drugs? Are you offering to buy drugs? Did you have crack on you? Are you entrapping people? He's in plain clothes. So you have a plain clothes white man come up to you, you know, offering you heroin drugs, right? You have heroin and stuff, and then you just feel nervous. You're like, man, you feel fishy. You sound like the police, and you start walking away. And you know, maybe he had marijuana on him, right? So he's confronting this possible police officer, and he doesn't like what's going on, so he starts walking away, and then that's when Mackenzie Mattingly, bam, 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 shoots him in the back, and he shoots him 3 times, and then they wait to take him to the hospital. They just lay him on the concrete, right? Again, just like that man in San Francisco, they shoot him and just let him, everybody just watched him die. He didn't have a gun, he didn't have anything on him. They did say that he had a gun, Michael Newby had a gun, and he had some marijuana on him, but he didn't have it pulled out, he didn't have it charged towards him, and he wasn't, you know, doing anything that would have warranted death to be murdered. He injured nobody, but Mackenzie Mattingly took another soul, he took another life off this planet. And he shot him in the back, you know, so it wasn't, he wasn't under imminent threat, he wasn't under imminent harm. Michael Newby walks away, and he shoots him in the back. They shot him in the back for a drug deal gone bad. I mean, if you're plain clothes and you're offering heroin and shit, how the fuck are you supposed to tell that you're the police officer? You know, they go plain clothes, they talk like fucking assholes and shit, they're not being professional, they're not being held to any sort of standards whatsoever. There's no accountability for any of these psychopaths, these barbaric white male psychopaths. There's absolutely nothing. So after they struggled, Newby went for so they say he went for his gun, right? That makes a ton of sense, right? Why would you get shot in the back if you were going for the gun? No, you weren't going for the gun. He was walking away, and you shot him in the back. He said he fired four times and then hit Newby 3 times in the back, and eventually the city paid $250,000 to Michael Newby's mother to settle a lawsuit. So $250,000, that's what they got, $250,000. That 18-year-old kid got raped. $1.4 million is what he got for getting raped in prison, and he deserved every penny of it. To say that a life is only worth $250,000, that's embarrassing. That's absolutely embarrassing. $250,000. You know, I guarantee if she'd rather have her son back or $250,000, she would pick to have her son back. And that's what they did. They shot him, you know, over some bullshit. Some bullshit. 2004. So that's you know, a little bit about Michael Newby and Mackenzie Mattingly. In 2008, Obama's elected, and then, you know, all the conservatives say racism in America is finally over, right? Fox News, it's over. We're in a post-racial era. There's no more racism anymore. And I like to believe it, but the evidence doesn't point to that. April 21st, 2011, Leon Brackens. So this case is the worst I've seen. They haven't gotten better, they've gotten worse. This is 2011, this is 2 years ago. And there have been news stories about it, but there hasn't been the same furor from the public. There hasn't been a public outcry because of it. And Leon Brackens, like I said, is the absolute worst case I've ever seen. Essentially what's going to happen is the Louisville police, Louisville Metro Police, are going to murder this old man to death. They're going to beat the shit out of this skinny old man who's got sickle cell anemia, who is skinny and sickly and has lots of issues already. And he was innocent and he did nothing wrong. You know, he had no drugs in his system. He had no gun on him. He was not committing any crime. His only crime was being in the passenger side of a woman who was fleeing the police. When she eventually pulls over, the cops pull him out of the van with his hands are still up and he's got a seatbelt on. So they take his seatbelt off and they throw him down on the ground and they're just pummeling him until he passes out. And he says this is unbelievable. The only thing that Leon Brackens wanted before he died was for this shit to never be repeated again. If they could do him like that, a sickly old man doing nothing, they could do anybody like that.